Hello and welcome to Aston University's coverage of COP26 as part of Aston Originals. You can follow us on Twitter at Aston Originals. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube too. So to carry on the theme of COP26, we've already covered off finance, transport and energy. Today we're going to talk plastics, and who better to talk to than the panel that we have today. Let's introduce them. We've got Professor Paul Topham.
Hi.
Dr. Matt Derry.
Hello.
And Dr. Kinana Aliko.
Hello.
Perfect. Well, let's go round in a virtual circle and introduce ourselves. I mean, Paul, we'll start with the top dog, shall we? Introduce.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. My name is Paul Topham. I'm the head of School of Infrastructure and Sustainable Engineering here at Aston University. And our research is very much in designing polymer materials, or as many people call them, plastics, and how we can do this in a much better way.
Perfect. Matt?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Matt Derry. I'm a lecturer in chemistry at Aston in the Chemistry and Chemical Engineering department. And much like Paul, my research interests lie in making and designing polymer materials with a particular focus on sustainability.
Perfect. And Kinana?
Yeah, hello. My name is Kinana Aliko, and I did my PhD at Aston University, which was about under the supervision of Prof. Paul Topham and Dr. Irene Theodosiou. It was about developing a green route to produce a biopolymer, bio-based polymer from renewable cheap feedstocks using green catalyst to be applied in food and medical applications. I work now as a business research associate at EBRI and specialized in biomaterial science.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us today. So Friday is the 5th day at COP26, so it's dedicated to youth and public empowerment, but there is an event focusing on the health of the oceans, and there wants to be global support for the protection of at least 30% of all oceans by 2030. Not a very long time. Obviously, the oceans are full of plastic, and the fish is full of plastic as well. So it's just a big problem, isn't it, Matt? I think. I mean, the first question I've got on here, just from when we started recording, was: are plastics evil?
My quick answer to that would be no, but of course we have to design them and use them and dispose of them or recycle them appropriately. So I guess I'm keen to stress that we've got so much plastic in our world at the moment, and I think it's something like 8.3 billion metric tons has been produced worldwide to date. But there's a reason for this, that there's been so much produced, and that's because they are such great materials from a material science point of view. They're cheap and efficient to make. They make durable, as we know, that's why they persist in the environment, but the durability is great for certain applications. And yeah, so going on the durability, if we talk about our plastic window frames, for example, we need them to be durable. We don't want them to be water soluble or to degrade over a short period of time. Otherwise, they won't be fit for purpose. And actually, when we look at plastic materials versus their non-plastic counterparts, they can save a lot of energy, certainly in their production, but also in their efficiency in their use of that particular application as well. So this is why we have so much plastic, but now we really need to focus on the source of the material. So can we make them from renewable materials? Can we make those materials perform in the same way that the fossil fuel derived materials perform? That's the big aim here. And then what happens to them afterwards? Can we make sure that they degrade safely, or can be recycled and repurposed?
And so I don't think it's something that we really think about too much, or it's maybe something that we don't want to talk about too much, is the whole after use part of polymers, because like you say, that they are very, very useful, but what needs to be done to make sure the end of their useful life is made the most of?
Well, there's a few things that we need to do, but from a chemist, from our point of view, we need to design these materials in a way that can be degraded efficiently and to non-harmful products. That would be one big thing. And yeah, if that isn't possible, then recycling and closing the loop, if you like, having this circular economy so that we can use the plastics for their function, recycle them efficiently and in a way that recovers as much of the useful properties of the material so that they can be reused. And yeah, closing the loop is a big message here.
Kinana, in terms of what's going on at Aston University to maybe solve some of these problems, there's some really, really interesting research that you sort of mentioned at the beginning of this. Could you just explain to us what sort of stuff you're doing?
And looking in the other sites of the biomass in the UK, we have around 16 million tons of biomass in the UK, and the agricultural stroke make a big portion of this one. So we decided to use these renewable sources and produce, which is usually chopped, returned back to the soil, or used for animal feeds. So turning it into valuable biomaterials, and these biomaterials into bioplastic. So we developed a green route using green catalysts. We used different feedstocks. I used, for example, barley straw, olive cake, brewery waste. I used citrus peels and different other feedstocks. And we created a chemocatalytic route using green catalyst, and we ended up with a biopolymers. These biopolymers can be used for food packaging, a biodegradable biopolymer that can be used in food packaging and medical applications. This is briefly.
Sorry, go on.
No,
Paul, on the point of how this works, and did you say it was around almost microwaves that helps this process?
Yeah. So what Kinana worked on in her PhD was essentially, as she said, she's taken what's already a waste material, and then she developed new processes to extract or change what the waste was by using microwaves. Essentially, chuck it in a microwave and you get useful product out of it.
Don't do that at home.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's not as simple as that, but it was a very clever thing that Kinana did in her PhD, and it really was a greener route to extracting these very useful chemicals.
And I think the way that it was broken down to me, or it seemed to be, Kinana, was that it would either be made into a material that would be biodegradable or could be recycled. So does that mean that you end up with two different products, or the same product that will just eventually biodegrade in a more green way?
No, actually, the polymers that we ended up, it is a biodegradable when it put in contact with the biosystem. So it's biodegradable, which means that can be break down into water soluble compounds that can be returned back in the metabolic in the cycle, in the biosystem cycle. So yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Sam, there are two different kinds. If you want to look at it like that, we can design a polymer that is biodegradable, but also we can design a polymer that at the end of its life can be broken down by some kind of process to then get chemicals again that can be used to make a material again. So it's different. And in Kinana's PhD, she said she was designing materials that were biodegradable from biosources.
It's groundbreaking research, isn't it, Kinana?
Sorry, again?
It's groundbreaking research, isn't it? What you've done. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah. I felt really happy about the end results. Of course, I mean, each research have even future also aims. So I hope to proceed further, to improve what we reached, for example, to apply what we had in. So we did some application in biomedical for biomedical purposes. And my aim is also to apply what we got for food packaging.
Matt, we all have daily routines. Some of it includes maybe our own compost heap. But how would you expect our routine in terms of recycling to potentially change if the right changes are made further down the line to make something like this become more of a daily reality for people?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I guess the focus of your question was putting it on an individual. I mean, we can play our part, absolutely, but the infrastructure and everything else needs to be there for us to even be able to do that, right? So this is something I was going to mention. So there's four of us here talking about plastics, but we could each recycle our plastic, but be asked to do this in a completely different way. So we were talking previously about, so I, for example, can chuck my plastic and cardboard and other recyclable items in one single bin, and then it gets collected. And I would really, really hope and like to think that it gets sorted and recycled appropriately. I mean, whether that's the case, you really have to ask your local council of what they actually do. But what each individual councils do with that recycling can vary from council to council. Even someone who's in the next street but in a different borough, it could be completely different. And I know this is the case. So I know people who live locally who do separate their cardboard and newspapers and things like this from their plastic waste, or even collect their food waste where that doesn't happen where I am. So yeah, it's complicated. And also going down you mentioned about composting and home composting, and then this is also something about labeling on our products as well. So you might see compostable on a lot of products, which makes it seem like, okay, great. But that typically doesn't mean that you can chuck it on your compost heap at home and it will degrade in a reasonable amount of time. So a lot of these that are compostable need specific treatment at industrial composting sites in order to degrade over a reasonable time frame. So there's different definitions of this, and I think communication of this and education to those who perhaps just think that compostable means can go be chucked in your garden and not worry about it, then this is quite a big message that needs to be sorted out, I think.
Paul, so we can all do our part, and we would have heard of the reduce, reuse, recycle slogan. It's been going around for many years now, but just to add on to what Matt said, what does that slogan mean to you now?
Well, I think so. The reduce, reuse, recycle slogan is what we can do as individuals. So, of course, we reduce the amount of waste we produce. So we think about it. Do we really need a plastic straw? We want to not ruin our lipstick, perhaps. I'm not sure. But, I mean, do we really need it, or could it be made from something else? Then we reuse as many times as we can a given material, and then at the end of its life, we recycle it. So then it's about making sure we select things that can be recycled. But just going back to the point of that slogan is for an individual. That's what we can do as general public. Yeah. But I think this problem with waste plastics is huge. And as Matt said right at the start, these materials are fantastic. They've really transformed the way we work, and they're much better in terms of energy and things like this. But it's got to be tackled from different areas. So the first area is we need government policy. So we need to incentivize companies to be doing the right things and less of the wrong things. We also need them being involved in the recycling from borough to borough and things like that.
Yeah. Then
we've got, again, the individuals, so the reduce, reuse, recycle. And then we've got us as scientists and engineers and technologists doing various things. And there's loads going on in the UK and all over the world. And it's about making materials better, so in a better way that we can do this full life cycle, if you like. So it's a huge problem, but we all have to work together on the various things. And that's what we're trying to do.
Let's have a look at COP26 as a whole, and maybe with the slant of looking at plastics. And Kinana, starting with you, do you think it will work?
Yeah, hopefully it will work. I mean, we have brilliant brains and that keep thinking about recent technologies which can prevent the wastes and can produce more valuable products from what we have. So if we keep thinking how we can do that, I guess at the end we will achieve something. And I've been for the last couple of weeks, I've been reading lots of things that the UK achieved in order to encourage the recycling or encourage how to reduce our waste to meet the 2050 net zero targets. So I'm really optimistic about this one. And look at us starting from Aston University. We have really great results and great academic data. Keep thinking all the time about how we can achieve that.
You have definitely been the most optimistic through this whole series of COP26 videos. So you got the accolade for that. Paul, thoughts?
I mean, absolutely. The answer is we have to. And as Kinana pointed out there, we have the capability to do this. We know what we need to do. We just have to get on and do it.
Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm optimistic with a caveat, which I think has been the common theme. We need commitment and accountability for that commitment from those that make the decisions. So the world leaders need to seriously commit to making a reasonable change and in a reasonable time frame that will help our planet. And I guess the accountability bit comes in hand with that, because we need to actually follow through with these commitments to make a real difference.
Excellent. Matt, I just want to ask you one last question, because it's something I picked up on before we started recording, and it just seems that you do love polymers. Is that fair to say? You love polymers. Which is your favourite polymer and why?
Which is my favourite polymer?
Which is your you must be able to geek out. This is your one chance to geek out on what's your favourite polymer and why.
Well, to geek out, really, I'd go for the one that I researched a hell of a lot during my PhD, because those times when you're doing your PhD, as Kinana will attest to, as she described her PhD work, and Paul a little longer ago than us, but will absolutely say this.
Nicely done, though.
But yeah, for me, it's a particular block copolymer. I mean, I won't particularly go into the detail of it, because I was making block copolymers that self-assembled in oil. So yes, this is oil, which is a dirty word in the concept of this, but those block copolymers that self-assembled in oil were used as additives in cars and reduced the friction that was experienced in a car engine and increased fuel economy. So it all goes full cycle again, improving fuel economy, reducing emissions. Yeah, I will be self-indulgent there and talk about my previous research.
And what's your second favourite? No, don't worry. Paul, have you got a favourite one?
No, I love them all. As long as they're designed in the right way, then, I mean, there's so many, and they do such great things. So I'm not going to choose one. I've not got a favourite.
Kinana, do you have a favourite vegetable peel to work with?
No, but I do love the renewable polymers that comes, or the biopolymer that comes from food waste. I really like them. Yeah, and I hope that this field of science can grow and be part of the solution of the whole climate change.
Perfect. Paul, I want to finish on a note, and it's something that you said the other day, just regarding plastic bags in the oceans, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it's just, I guess, this thing that we can all do is, if you look in the ocean, you don't see £5 and £10 notes floating around. So as general public, what we all need to do is care about where our materials end up. I think that's the key thing. We all care about those £5 and £10 notes. So, if we care about the plastics as much, then, it can go a long way.
That's great. Perfect. Well, thank you to the panel. Head over to aston.ac.uk. There is a COP26 page which has all the information that you will need on it. But otherwise, it is a goodbye from Paul, Matt, and Kinana, and it is a goodbye from me. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.